Now with a live Quark, CEO of Littlebird, Marshall Kirkpatrick.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and happy Halloween. I am Marshall Kirkpatrick, CEO of Littlebird, and if you'll allow me, I'd like to set the stage a bit. Ray has done a great job of painting a picture of dramatic change over the past few years and decades. I've recently begun reading Al Gore's new book, The Future, where he draws a picture of incredibly accelerated rates of change throughout the human experience in the form of quickly truncating periods of change driven by new technology and new materials. And that's exactly where we are in our lives. We're blessed and lucky to be in a period of incredibly rapid change, unlike humanity has ever seen before, but that's both a blessing and a major challenge. If you've seen this month's issue of the Harvard Business Review magazine, there's a great cover article about making decisions in circumstances of radical uncertainty. Back in the old days, the article said, if you had a clear understanding of a causal model when making a decision, if you could clearly articulate all the potential outcomes of your decision and assign variable probabilities of those different outcomes occurring, then you could use traditional decision-making protocols to make a good, solid decision. But these days, we're so often surrounded by unknown unknowns in circumstances of radical uncertainty that we need to do something different to fill the gap in our understanding when making decisions and forecasts. And the article in particular recommends stories and analogies from other people's experience. I really liked this flowchart that came in the story. I liked it so much in print that I pulled out my phone, loaded up my Fancy Hands virtual assistant app, took a picture of the flowchart and asked for a digital copy of it. I then walked my dog, came back to my office, and there was a beautiful PowerPoint copy of the flowchart in my inbox to edit. So that's the world that we find ourselves in, an unprecedented rate of incredible change surrounded by radical uncertainty, unknown unknowns, with these incredibly powerful devices in our hands and global distributed workforces, and it's pretty overwhelming. What on earth are we going to do business in those kinds of circumstances and to deal with that kind of change and unknown? Fortunately, there is a buzzing beehive of conversation going on in just about every industry across the social web. This is a map of thousands of connections that we at Littlebird have drawn across the Twitter sphere amongst specialists interested in the future of work. There's Luis Suarez from IBM. You can see that he's in one of those clusters. But there's a number of different distinct clusters in that particular community, and those folks are talking about the future of work in real time, all day long, all around the world. And it's my belief that that's a great place to look for hints about the future, to see the future as it emerges and to engage with it and play a role in changing it. And that's what we want to do. That's our big picture aspiration at my startup, Littlebird. We want to help you see the future and engage with it. Now that's a pretty big claim for a little 10-person startup in Portland, Oregon to make. How are we able to make such a claim? To give you a little bit of background story, if you'll forgive the immodesty, here's the story behind Littlebird. Prior to starting this company, I had worked as a journalist using data. I used data and systems and tools to beat Mike Arrington to so many news stories that he made me the first hired writer at TechCrunch. Then I was the co-editor of a competing blog called Read Write Web, where we built out elaborate research systems and tools to eat the lunch of our competitors like GigaOM and VentureBeat on breaking news. And in a sick, twisted turn of fate, Mashable, probably now the largest tech blog in the world, said publicly once that they learned how to use Twitter by watching me, which I'm trying to live down ever since. The lessons learned from that kind of experience are what we're building into Littlebird. As I've mentioned, we've got 10 people now in Portland, Oregon. Our lead developer there, Devin Gaffney, is the man who did the math to prove that Mitt Romney's Twitter account was full of fake followers during the last presidential election. And our team is funded and backed up by our lead investor, Mark Cuban, owner of the Dallas Mavericks. And so that team and that background, that experience is putting together Littlebird. And the fundamental thesis of Littlebird is that in a period of radical transformation and change, with a buzzing hive of conversation on the social web, the best place to look to find the future emerging and to engage with it is at the center of the social graph. So what we do is map out connections between specialists and experts and influencers in niche topics, and see who influences the influencers, who the experts are paying attention to. We see how real organic communities have voted with their feet, like 9 out of 10 dentists recommend on television today. It's real, it's authentic, and it's in real time in every industry throughout society. Here's a map of 48,000 connections that we've drawn in the big data world with a whole bunch of different big data specialists following one another on Twitter, because that's where the data is nice and programmatically acceptable or accessible. I didn't know Amr Awadallah at all until we mapped out the big data world. It turns out he's a key node in it. He connects a couple of sub-communities. He's the co-founder of Cloudera, a really important company. And thanks to the automated mapping of that community, I was able to discover him on demand, reach out, make a connection with him, and now he and I follow each other on the social web, which is a better place to be than where I used to be. Different communities, different topics have different structures to them. The Internet of Things community, for example, is spread out with lots of different sub-communities clustered together. And if you follow Internet of Things at all, there's a certain sort of logic about why some of these people associate with themselves more than they do others outside of that. So that's the first step of what we do at Littlebird. We map out these communities. And that's cool, and it's fun. But from a business perspective, there are 3 things that we aim to do with the company, with our customers. And the first is to determine who's at the top. When you're just getting started, or if you want to be most efficient in engaging with all of these incredible churning conversations across the social web, why not start at the top? And here's how it works. A Littlebird user says, I'm interested in enterprise software, for example. And we say, do you mean people and organizations like these ones? And we offer some examples. You can say X sum out. You can add your own suggestions. And then what we do is an on-demand, real-time crawl of the social graph of all of these initial examples, finding friends of friends of friends, and lots of hundreds or thousands of interconnected accounts across Twitter. And then we put them in ranked order. And that's the end result of a report on enterprise software. Look who's at the very top. It's Ray, which means we're in the right place. Good job, Ray. More enterprise software specialists on Twitter follow Ray than follow anyone else in the Littlebird index. When Ray talks, some really powerful, interesting, relevant people pay attention. Now, these are Twitter connections, but we believe that they're a great proxy and a great start for quantifying social connections in general, including those that are offline. But we don't just stop at Twitter. We find people in our reports on Facebook. We find them on LinkedIn. We find them on Google+, YouTube, SlideShare, and other networks. And it's pretty awesome to be able to snap your fingers and say, bring me hundreds of the world's most trusted neuroscientists or CRM specialists or ERP specialists, and know that you are resting that discovery on an analysis that tracks the actual lived communities and the way that they have chosen to spend their time and attention. But once you've mapped out all of those experts and put them in ranked order on a particular topic, the next thing that Littlebird helps you do is to determine who you know in that space. Here's myself run up against our report on enterprise software, for example. I'm fortunate to be followed on Twitter by 134 of the top specialists in enterprise software. I was interesting enough on the social web that Ray started following me. Because we had that connection, I was able to reach out to him and ask for a briefing on our software. That briefing ended up leading to an invitation to be here before you today, and thank you, Internet. But let's look at a topic that I have fewer connections in, but I'm interested in. In the world of HCM, for example, you can see that only 45 of the top 1,000 people that we've mapped out in HCM are following me. And if I was looking to market to that space, I've got a ranked list of almost 1,000 people who are not yet following me. Steve Bose is the #1 man in this industry by our social graph metric. And I must confess, I don't know very much about him. I know he used to be at Oracle, but here's a little bit of history about him. I can plug Steve into that same HCM report and cross-reference his social capital with our index of experts in the field, and I can learn about his provenance, I can learn about his recent connections, and I can shed some light on the life and background of this influencer by analyzing his social capital relative to a peer-validated map of the social graph in this space. So this kind of functionality can be used in all kinds of interesting ways. Littlebird customer Iron Mountain, for example, runs Littlebird reports on particular markets when they're going to trade shows. And they figure out who the most influential people at, say, an electronic health records show are going to be, and they figure out who they're already connected to, who they should form connections with. They put themselves through, their allies through, their employees through, and it helps take the marketing budget for an event and extract all the more value out of it. The last of 3 things that Littlebird helps you do is to get in the game, to participate, to be social in social media in a more scalable and effective sort of way. Because those connections get stronger with care, and the offline and the online world are really complementary. So there's a couple of different ways that we help you form new connections. If you are interested in forming connections with some of the leaders in the healthcare industry in the European Union, you might visit a page like this, where you'll see the links and conversations that peer-validated experts in healthcare in the EU are most excited about today and this week. We've answered the question, who should I talk to? And this is the answer to the question, what should I talk about? Content marketers like this, social sales people like this. I don't want to say that it's because a robot helps them look more human, but someone said that to me yesterday. So I guess I did just say that. So in addition to on-demand finding content and tracking it over time for hotness and opportunities to engage, conversations to participate in, content to reshare, connections to make, we'll send you an email every day. This is an example of an email I received last week recommending a top influencer in the enterprise software space that I was not yet connected to, that I had subsequently clicked through and followed, and some content that I should make sure to know about and consider resharing. So I can really get in and be social in the social space so that I can grow those connections and make use of them in any number of different ways. Later this fall, we'll be announcing the productization of a West Point algorithm that was just published on the most efficient way to find the key people in any community that need to be reached with a message in order for that message to spread out into every nook and cranny throughout the community. It was the most elegant, state-of-the-art algorithm published to date on that, and at Littlebird you'll soon be able to have that algorithm applied to the community of influencers and experts that we've mapped out for you to further come up with a good game plan. So Littlebird customer Comcast, for example, runs Littlebird reports and finds conversations to engage with amongst leaders in particular fields before every major announcement so that they can prime the pump to reach out with their subsequent announcements that they want to get extra boost to and know that they've already identified and engaged with the most influential people in the relevant subjects vis-a-vis that announcement. So there's clearly some strong use cases for sales and marketing, but I really hope that it'll go well beyond that too. You may remember this screen, you may not. Back in 2006, a little while before the IPO, right? Twitter said that if you had a text, you could text and you had a cell phone, you would never be bored again, ever. And that was its value proposition. And now, in 2013, the US government finds that watching tweets help it find earthquakes faster than their own geological equipment more than 50% of the time, which is pretty cool. But they know what they're looking for. We don't always know what we're looking for in other spaces in business. We're in a period of radical change, surrounded by unknown unknowns, and we don't know what we're looking for. We want to find opportunities, and we want to find them hopefully before they shake the very ground that we're standing on. But where do we look? That's what we do at Littlebird. Whether you're interested in things like quants, B2B sales, Internet of Things in New York City, you name it, the future of work, we will use a data-driven, social graph founded approach to analyzing these hundreds of millions of conversations going on across the social web to zero in to exactly where we believe the future is most likely to be detected, to be discussed, to emerge from, and to make it easier than ever for you to notice it early and to engage with it and make the social web truly powerful and valuable to you. So that's Littlebird. Thank you very much.